Hi, I'm Larry McCoy. I had a thought about when I see the repads of the Conn era chewberry saxophones, if you will. And I noticed we always jump to resonators and modern pads, roux pads, whatever. What if we repadded the instrument as close to the original manufacturer as possible so we can get what it sounded like at that time? So that's what we're going to do. I've got it's a pre-Chewberry Conn saxophone, but still the Conn saxophone with the white pads. And we're going to repad it and rebuild it and going to use shellac, white kid pads, and thread rather than any rivet or any metal in the pad. And when we get done, we're going to see if it sounds that much difference. Now, I do things on this video. I will try to do them once or twice, but I'm not going to have the whole video on me putting pads in. After I put a couple in, you'll see what's involved, and we'll go on from there. Anything that's particular to this instrument, I will show you. If there's dents, tone holes, any of that that's particular to this instrument, I'll show you what we did. Other than that, I'm not going to spend hours showing the same, how do I straighten a rod and then straighten 15 rods. That's ridiculous. So, the main thing I would like you to stay tuned for though, or skip to if you wish, is the buffing techniques I use on silver instruments. Why I use certain things, why I use certain speeds, and why it's going to be different from everybody else you see on the internet. So, thanks for watching. Here we go. Let's unbox this thing and go from there. Okay, let's start with the box from eBay, and it looks like, to my pleasure, it was not shipped with the case. Now, when they ship saxophones with the case, a lot of times people assume, that don't know much about it, assume that the case, it's protected, and in shipping, that it'll be just fine to float the case and it'll be all right. Well, the problem being is when the case is bounced around inside, there's a lot of times it's only supported at the bell, and if the neck is not supported good, it'll take a drop. The case won't show any damage, but the instrument will be bent at the bell brace because of the saxophone case. So I'm glad to see he didn't send it with a case. Besides that, the very first thing I'd have to do with the case is throw it out. The cases, I don't care how hard you try, and I've done it over the years, how much you wash, the cases are not salvageable. Old cases have a musty smell. Besides that, they have mold in them a lot of times. Because, you know, what does mold thrive on? Darkness, heat, and moisture. Well, duh, what's like a saxophone when we put it away? Moisture inside, heat because we've been playing it, and then you put it in the darkness of the case. And so we get mold. So my first concern, and especially for me because I am really susceptible to mold, is I want to check and make sure the saxophone is not moldy or doesn't seem to have much mold. Because if so, then the first thing I'll have to do is give it a bath, which giving it a bath makes a lot of problems. And okay, buddy, where's the neck? Tell me the neck is here somewhere. I hope it's in the bottom of this box. If not, I'm going to scream, because that's one of the most important things here. So, let's see if... Yeah, there it is. All right. So now we got a neck, which is right here. Camping World. Isn't that cute? Look at that. Got a nice little hand there. Hi there, everybody. Anyways, camping world. All right. So here's the neck, and I would like to see that the neck is not damaged in any way. And oh, it's got a mouthpiece on it. Oh, this is so cool. I hope it's an old mouthpiece and not just some student thing. Oh, it is. What is it? What is the mouthpiece? I don't recognize it right away, but pretty cool. Pretty cool. Because what we're going with is the old. And this came with it. Very cool. And it's the lay on it looks pretty good. Very salvageable, whatever it is. Okay, I'll put the mouthpiece on the bench. The neck looks really great. Spring shot. Somebody tried to braze. Well, they did braze. It broke here and they brazed it. Did a rather crummy job. But we'll salvage that. Okay, and what else? Let's go down. Just a quick cursory outside view, and then I'll put it on the bench and we can go through it. I don't see any major dents. I'm going to smell it. Yeah, we've got some old smell in it, but it doesn't smell like any mold. Keys are pretty bent up. Bottom bow is lovely. Little dent right there. No biggie. So overall, we're good. Next, I'll take it. The other thing that's really cool for what I need is it has the original pads. It has the original pads, which I'm going to replace with original type pads. Okay, let's go to the next step. We'll take it over to the bench. Okay, let's take a first time cursory look at this. As we can see, the key guards are all bent up. There is a bell brace that's pushed into the, you can see the dent right there. That's the outline of the brace here, and you can see that's dented in. So that's one of the major ones. And you can tell it's badly dented because the key, the B key, as you can see, is right up against the key, the guard. Okay, so what else do we have? We have bent up. If you look at the, see if I can hold it better. If you look at right here, this operates the F-sharp key. It's all bent. Instead of adjusting the bumpers or whatever, the key corks, whoever did it over the years just bent that. So it's all bent up. We got to straighten that up and start all over again. A lot of the keys themselves are bent. If you'll notice the B, B flat, C sharp, all that spatula is way out of line. It's not even lined up. The high D's, all the keys D, if you'll notice, look at how wide they open. The key cork that's going to go on there is a 16th. So it's going to adjust it that far, is what I want it to open. It's already opening that far. And if we look at the rest of them, they're opening way like this, is the stratosphere. So those are all bent and have to be straightened back, put into shape. Oh, there's a, yeah, I remember there's a dent. Yeah, here we go. There's dent here in the bottom. You see that better? Yeah, if I get the light on it right, you can see it. There's a dent in the bow there. And what's really funny, and we discussed this when I was opening it, and I said, you know, I really don't like them to ship them with the case because they can bend things. Well, this bell brace right here that we're talking about was pushed in because when it was in the case. Now, how do I know that? It's very easy. First of all, we take the let me sit down. We take a look at the bell itself. Look at it, it's still round. The bell is still round. So if this were pushed in by the instrument being dropped like this, it would show up on the bell. This would be all dented in. So it wasn't. So what this means is, in the case, when it was being supported in the case supports it here, but it was dropped like that in the case. In the case, pushed that in, the weight of that pushed it in here, and like I say, you can see the bell isn't dented at all. What's really neat about this, I don't know if you can see it really well, the bell is gold, flash gold plated. So when we get this all cleaned up, it's going to look nice. So there's the rough beginning of it. And first thing we'll go to from here is that bell brace and get that thing straightened out and see if I have to resolder. Well, I'll have to resolder this, but see how much I can get away with. Okay, here we go. Now, as you saw before, I used Brasso on the inside, and that's really kind of abrasive for silver, although it works. Fortunately, old silver instruments are heavy silver plate rather than current ones that are flash plated, so they're very thin. So what do I use? My not secret ingredients is Wright silver cream. It's very least abrasive, and so we're just going to go over that. My other secret cleaning tool is I've got a real soft toothbrush, and it really works good for getting the small things. So let's just start a little bit up at the top and work down and see what we can get. If it's not strong enough, we can go to heavier stuff. But for right now, I think the Wright's cream will do it. We'll see what it leaves us with. Okay, let's roll it over here. See where we are there. Okay, and that's my wife. She's taken off. So I'm just continue here. Okay, bye, hun. Hello, now we get to the point in the video where I talk about buffing. And as far as repair go, this will be the one part of the video that I will differ from everybody else. First of all, before I start talking about this, I want to make it clear I'm talking about silver plated instruments. in this specific case, keys, silver-plated keys. I'm not talking about brass. I'm not talking about nickel. I'm not talking about chrome. All those keys, I would use different methods, different speeds, different things. So when we start this, understand I'm specifically talking about silver instruments and silver keys. So with that in mind, the first thing that's really important is to understand that we have the buffer speed first. Now, most motors turn at 3450 or 1725. That revolutions per minute. That's the speed of most of the motors you get. Now, if you look, you can find other motors at a lower speed, which is what I have. Some shops use belt drive with arbors so they can change the speed. Because what we're concerned about is the surface speed of the buff. What I want is to know surface feet per minute speed. Surface feet per minute is what I want. Now, how do we get that? We take the speed of the motor, multiply it by the diameter of the buff, multiply that by 0.26 and some change, and it will give us the surface speed. I want a surface speed. I have found through the years that a surface speed that serves me well somewhere around 2,000 feet per minute. And again, on silver. So if the buffing motor I have is 3450 and it's an 8-inch buff, now we are talking about the surface speed being over 7,000 feet per minute. That is just too fast for my needs. So let's say we cut it in half, and again, so we get the motor that's 1725. Now, again, so it'll cut the surface speed in half. Now we're at about 3,600 feet per minute, the speed is. Still too fast for me. I want it close as I can get to 2,000. So both my buffer motors that I bought have a speed of 1250, 1,250 revolutions per minute. You multiply that times the diameter times 2.6. Now we end up with an 8-inch buff of 2,600 feet per minute, the surface speed of the buff. Yeah, that's okay. I'll work with that. But what's really nice is when the buff goes from an 8-inch buff, which we're talking about these speeds, gets wore down to 6 inches, now the surface feet per minute speed is 1963. Cool, this is right where I like. So I like using this buff. I'll use this one when it's new, but I like using this buff. Now, why am I so concerned about having the speed be so lower compared to other things? You'll get on other videos and you'll see them doing mag wheels and chrome and everything else, and they got the speed going crazy. Well, that's fine for that. The reason I don't like it, and the reason it's serviced me so well over the years, is when you got a high speed and the buff is turning at that speed, and you put the buffing grease on it, and some are grease base and wax base, and some are a water type base. But when you put it on at that speed, say it's a grease base, or my Red Rouge is a wax base, at that speed, it's 7,000 feet per minute. First thing is the buffing grease wants to just spin right off of it. Then I put what I'm buffing on it and I lay into it. Now it really increases the heat of the buffing grease, and now it just flies, it turns to liquid just about, and now flies off on the ground. So that's fine, you keep putting buffing grease on it every few seconds, but at the speeds that I have it, it's nice and gentle. It's like hand rubbing it off, and it isn't it isn't dangerous at all. So the next thing is buffing wheels. My buffing wheels with silver, whatever compound I use on that, whatever compound I use on the wheel, I make sure that's the only compound that hits this wheel. For instance, what we're going to use on the silver, the first compound we're going to use is a yellow compound, and the grit size on the yellow compound is 2 to 4 microns. And the next one that we're going to do to finish it off is what they call color buffing, which is a red rouge, and the size of the abrasives on that are 20 to 40 microns. Here's a new muslin wheel. Again, I've cut the stitching on it, and here's what it looks like after being used for a while. But it's cleaned off, and that's the final buff. Is the color buff is going to be that. So again, I want to iterate this is for silver. The other thing that I do is I do the initial polishing of the corner of the keys by hand before I even put the first wheel on it. Now, if it were a chrome or nickel, I wouldn't do it by hand first. I'd use what's called a razor buff, for obvious reason, the name. And I can get into all the corners of the keys. Let me just grab one here. I can get into all the corners of the keys with a razor buff. But I don't want to overly stress any of the silver plate. I don't know what's been done to this in the past, so I'm going to take as little silver plating as possible. I want to be sure that I'm just polishing this and not sanding it off. So the initial polishing I'm going to do by hand. I'm going to get these little corners. I'll show you that before we go to the buffing wheel. And then that's my difference, and we'll see what it looks like. Number 1. Now before I buff the keys, I want to get some parts that I can't reach with the buffing wheels. If this were, again, only because it's silver, if this were anything else, I would use a razor buff and use it and get into all these tight places on the buffing wheel. But since it's not brass and it's silver, I will be using wheels that are about this size. So I can get really good there, but getting into these nooks and crannies here would be very difficult. So since I won't be able to use that since it's silver, I have to pre-prep these keys by hand. So I have a piece of wicking here, and it has the yellow buffing grease on it. I also have some silver cream polish, and what I'm going to do is take my finger, get a little polish, and these parts that I can't get with the wheel, these very 90-degree corners there, that's what I'm getting at. So I've got my fingernail in there, and I'm pushing against those parts, making sure I get those. And then at the same time, I'm going to use this wicking like a strap and get in the hard parts that I can't get with the buffing wheel. Going down those and then wipe it off. Let's see what we got here. Now, I'm not getting all every inch of it. What I'm concerned about is those little nooks and crannies that I can't reach with the buffing wheel. So, as you can see, we got them. What I'm concerned about is right there. Up above it, off of here on the side of the keys, I really don't care about. Right in there, I'm concerned about, because I can't reach that with the buffing wheel. Right in here, I don't have yet. So let's just run it through real quick. There. Now we got that. So that's all I have to do. This, as you can see, this part of it, I can reach with the buffing wheel. Buffing wheel will be able to get it. Everything else I'll be able to get with the buffing wheel. It's just since I'm not using a razor buff, I can't get the small corners. Let's see. Oh, here's a good example. I cannot reach in there with this buff. I can get pretty close. So all I do is take it like a strop and boom, there it is. We got that corner. This and this, I can probably get with the buff. Yeah, see, I can get that with the buff. So I'm not going to worry about it. That's all I want to do is get that. I've mentioned and we've talked about speeds of the buffers and why I have them at the speeds I have them. But I never specifically showed the reason. And it really is very simple. If you see this buff, if it's spinning at a surface feet per minute of 7,000 feet per minute, this edge would just be spinning terrifically fast compared to what it is now. It's 1963. All right, so at 1963, well, let's just call it 2000. At 2000 RPM rather than 7,000 RPM, I have all kinds of freedom with this buff. I can push sideways, up. It's very easy. The buffing grease does not slide off of it. I can get into corners because I can bend the buff very easily. And I don't have to worry about it spinning so fast that it just pulls everything out of my hands. So I can just go nice and easy, get it all, get the corners there, coming in from this end, get this corner, and you can see I can push on the buff, it gives, and because of that give, it kind of forms into all the little nooks that are left without ripping the key out of my hands. And again, you see I want to get right down in there. I can push the buff over and get down into that. Same thing here. So now I can get all kinds of areas because it turns so slow. And it still does its job just fine. Now, what else I would like to show one of is the difference now. And we can see that looks pretty good. You can see my reflection in it there. That looks pretty good as far as the initial buff goes. But I'm going to take it over and I'm going to use the red buff, or what we call the color buff. It's just very, very loose buff now. And again, when we're turning at the speed 2,000 rather than 7,000, a little bit of red rouge on it, I can fold this buff all over the place, get all kinds of actions. It's doing its job, and it's not ripping the key out of my hands. It's nice and easy, and it's doing it. So let's get the corners here. Oops, that one didn't get really good on the other buff. Let's just finish it off here. There, that's good. Now, after we color buff it, let's look at the shine now. And again, now you can see my reflection in there. You can see the shine that it has. And that's what the finished buff is going to be done to every one of those keys. So since my wheels are facing each other, one turns one way, one turns the other, so I can go from one key, from one buff to the other buff, and do the whole set without having to buff them all once, set them down, change the wheels, and put them all up again. So there we have it. That's the simple explanation on why I have the speeds the way I have them. Okay, now we've got the keys all nice and buff shiny. Now let's prep the keys and organize them for putting key corks on. the octave key here. We want the cork to stick really well, so I want to be sure and scrape or sand wherever the cork is to make sure there's nothing that's going to make my glue not stick. And we're going to put them in piles by the thickness of the cork. That octave key takes a 16th, so we're going to put that over here. The back of this G sharp key takes a 16th, so we'll put that over there. This takes a felt, but I don't put any felt on the keys till after I adjust them. The reason being, the felt, when I put the heat on the key cup to remelt the shellac, the felt is just going to go up in flames. I don't want to burn that, so here's the back of this. Is a 16th also over in my 16th pile. Ooh, this is kind of a double here. The back of this here is going to take a 16th. Get all this junk off of it. And this should take a 16th also. And the back of this, I'm probably going to go with a 32nd. So I'll put this in the shared pile. So we use a nice industrial contact cement, and we'll just go down and put some on each one of the keys that we're going to glue. So we'll start with here, one there, one there, and onward and onward. Put this on it, and I'm going to use my flat pliers to make sure I can get some good pressure on it here. Let's go right here like that. Looks pretty good. Okay, so we got that down there tight. I just want to cut it off with the razor blade so that we have something solid. I'll use my block, and I just want to cut it off roughly. With the thicker cork, that's what you got to do first. Is cut it off in a rough pattern around what you're doing. Then the next thing you do is throw the razor blade away, because we want to use a sharp one. We want to make sure that the cut down the side of the cork is done in one stroke. That'll give me that nice look I want as a processional and not an armature. So the amateurs and professional, what's the difference? So I'm going to want it there. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to pull as I run down the side of the key. Same thing, let's go around this side. Let's start at the back with a very slight angle. I'm not doing the finish angle yet. I'm just doing a rough cut. And then this should line up square with the key. So we'll do that. Now I can take and do my final cut. Some people, that'd be all right, but that's not the way it should be. We should have a slight, all right, see how that's straight down the side? It should have a nice slight bevel there. So that's what we're going to put into it right now, is that nice looking bevel. And it's always started and done with one stroke, so I don't have any blade marks in it. And again, I'm going right down it. right down to the, oops, I want another sharp blade. They gotta be sharp. That's why I've got tons of them. I just buy them by the hundreds. And again, there. Well, let's see what we got here. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. I don't like... Now, I know some of you watching this are going to say, picky, picky, picky. But this is how I was taught. If you will look, this side has a deeper bevel than that side. So I want to take the bevel on this side and make it match. There we go. And I have a little bit of a mark there I want to get rid of, and a little bit of a mark right there I want to get rid of. There. Now that's much better. Now we have that nice bevel to it. And I have a little mark there that I will take the file, and boy, that wants to stick to these gloves. Take the file and very lightly. Now, nobody's going to know this but me and you guys. Now I got that little edge off of there, of the cork. Now that's perfect. There we go. Now a nice even side. The bevels are even. It cuts in. It goes in from the side. And from the top of the key, you don't see it. It's not sticking out anywhere. That's the way all my key corks are going to be. What do we got here? I had a strip of 16th. There it is. Or was I going to use 32nd there? This is on top of the key. Yeah, this is a 32nd. This is a 32nd. This is on top of the, this key overlaps the key that pushes the lower, overlaps a little bar that pushes the lower octave key down. And this doesn't take a thick cork. This takes a 32nd. So I'm just gonna put it on right there. There. Oops. There. Oh, that's on there. Okay. Again, razor blade, following the shape of the key, using the key as a guide, and following the key. So that's about all I'm going to do with the key corks. Again, I don't want a half hour of silly stuff, but that's how they should look. I'll have to wipe the glue off there. I got that nice polished key and I got glue on it. I don't want that to show up. So that's how they should be cut. Now, as we know, we're trying to make the pads original as possible. So I special ordered thick pads so that I could get them in the instrument. But of course, there's no string in them. And we're not using rivets or resonators. So what we have to do is do it with the thread like they did at that time. I am using extra strong upholstery thread. It's really strong. And what I did was I marked the pads, I marked the center of them, and then I used a punch. I used a needle spring so it would spread the hole rather than cut a hole. I didn't want any cut holes. And I punched either side of the, see if that'll focus, come on guys, either side of the hole on the other. So, again, it has the holes I punched already either side of it. I'm just going to go through the center one. And down through the other side that's pushed over there, and because there's a hole it's so easy to get through the cardboard. And we have a tight, and again I'm just going to do a clove hitch. I'm going to do it through double, pull it, that's going to kind of cinch it there, and now to lock it on I'm simply going to do another one. There. Now we're locked on. It's got its thread. It'll hold it, the center of the pad in, and I just cut them off. And that's it. 20 other pads, but there it is. It's got its nice little cinch in the middle of it, and it will hold the leather down nice and tight, and we're there. Now, in the shellac video, I noticed that the actual putting of the shellac into the key cup was off camera. So I just wanted to show you the whole thing with the shellac is just simply melting it till it drips, till it drips into the key cup. Then I would heat the key cup till it flowed into all corners of it, like that. And then I just pulled it off to the side and waited and rocked it back and forth until it cooled down. When it got cool enough to put the pad in, then you saw me put the pad in. Putting pads in with the shellac. Put the pads in with the shellac. Just got the torch over here. Gonna melt it till it starts flowing down in there. It starts dripping in the key cup. And when I get the key cup about half full, that's what I need for these this thickness of pads, even though I've ordered a thickness one. For this thickness of pad. Now we just have to wait, because it's just too hot now to put the pad in. If you put the pad in now, it will just kind of ooze over everything. So I'm just waiting now until the shellac gets a little viscous, which it's almost there. Yeah, just a little bit more. I tell by how it moves across the key cup. Still a little bit too hot. Almost there. There, it looks pretty good. Now we've got our trusty dusty pad with the thread in it, and then just to line it up across all the way around the pad perfectly, I got this block, and there we go. We just gonna let it cool. Set that over there. Let's just heat this baby up, see where it goes. Get it to go all the way to the edge, all the way around. Nice heat. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, and then we'll just wait and just rock it back and forth until such time as the glue gets viscous enough that it's not gonna just kind of ease out all over the place. Yeah, it's still pretty hot. Could put it on there, cool it down a little bit quicker. What's nice about having a nice thick layer of shellac is when you go to adjust the pads, it just heats the very, very back of it, and it's still plenty shellac that's solid up to the... Okay, that's about it. All right, here we go. Gonna drop that baby in there. Then we're gonna set it up here and get it pushed in, but keep it as flat as possible to the key cup, which looks good there. Before I go putting this back together, I wanted to show you something that's kind of special to me. I made long ago, and this is my assembly screwdriver. And if you'll notice there, that looks pretty good. On the tip of my assembly screwdriver, I have filed a spring hook. So during assembly, I don't have to reach for any spring hooks because they're right here. Anybody can duplicate that, just with a file. So you can see there it is. So that's what I'll be using for the most of the assembly. And I don't use the screwdriver all the time for everything because the tip is not strong enough for the heavy disassembly. I use the screwdrivers that absolutely fit the slot, because on disassembly, a lot of times screws are going to be wedged in there and corroded, and we have to use the exact thing. But putting it back in, once everything's all cleared out, this screwdriver works really great for assembly. Plus it gives me the extra added thing of having a spring hook in my hands all the time. So next thing is, when I assemble these, there's a little trick I do with putting the upper stacks, sometimes the lower stack, not so much the lower stack, but especially the upper stack, because the upper stack has the longest rod in it, and there's so many keys on it, and you fumble in trying to get them in. The other thing is, this has the added problem of the keys, rather, some of them have holes for the springs rather than little hooks. So we have a couple keys that have holes that the key has to be threaded on to the spring while we align everything and keep it there. Now I have checked the tension on these springs, on the ones that I have to align. One of them I did have to replace. Here's my little secret. Okay, I've got my trusty dusty screwdriver, but I also do this. I take and get a drill rod that's considerably smaller than what normally goes in. And here is the threaded end of the drill rod, and it'll even slide through that. So what I do is, this gives me an added benefit of having rods on both ends, and this is the one that goes to assembling it. It gives me advantage of having rods on both ends. Now, since this is final assembly, I take a drop of the bearing oil and I put it on the feed end. In other words, the end that the rod is going to go through. And with that drop there, it'll feed the oil. I don't have to worry about this, that'll have enough oil. When it goes through, it will feed that oil through the entire rod. And a little bit here, won't hurt, and a little bit here. Okay, so now I'm going to set these things in place. Oh, let's use the ones that have to be fed in through a hole first. So the C key has to be fed in, so it has to go through, and the spring has to be fed into the hole there. Like that. Come on there, get in there, there. There you go. Okay. And the other one that has to be fed in is the lower octave. It has a hole in it too that we've got to feed the screw in. Okay, so I got the lower octave in there. And then let's put this whole thing together. on here. So first thing I want to do is get the keys that have hooks in them. And again, my little secret is I'm going to have a rod going in through the other end because the stacks have so many keys on them, it's just kind of hard to juggle them. So I'm going to take the keys that have holes in them that the springs have to be put into. This has two of them. It has that, and it has the octave key. Okay, the lower octave key. So since that's the first one, I can start this in here and leave that on there. Okay, now we want to get this one on, and I don't want it to come off. I got to watch as we're going through here that doesn't come off. Let's kind of set everything in here. I think by just by weight, a lot of things can be just set in there. Need this big time. That's up to the octave key. Okay, so we'll go into that. I just kind of setting them there. And then we've got the B flat bisque has to go in. Okay, kind of there we are. I'll take this off for a second. Let's let this rod help me. I've got a rod from the other end. I'm going to have that rod help me. We'll start with going through here and have it kind of help me keep things together. This has to go up there. Okay, see if I can pull it out and put it back in and have it help me put these together. Oops. There you go. And into here. And at the same time, making sure that B key that's got to be hooked into a hole is hooked into there, which it is. We got that. And again from the top. Now we use both ends to kind of help us put this together. Hello, why are you fighting me? There we go. Goes there. This goes here. And this has to go in here, which is fine. And then we'll use this end to line that one up and hold it in there, and then one final key. And now examine and make sure the springs, the other springs that I have to hook, I'm all right, but the springs that go into a hole, I want to make sure they're in the holes, which they are. And on those springs on the other side, everything looks good. This is the final key, and you'll notice I have no felts on any of these keys, only because, oops, come on, hold this for me here. Yeah, let's get it in there. I have no felts on them because I'm going to be heating the keys and rocking them and adjusting them, and I don't want to burn the felts. So I'll put the felts on these keys. Any of these keys that take circular felts, I'll put those felts on after. Okay, let's get this baby in there. Right about there. We can push from this end. Yeah, that's pretty good. We've got it. All right. Now what's neat is I can adjust the rod from this end and push her in nice and gentle, and it'll just push this rod out as I do it. Line them all up. There's more. Just keep wiggling these keys and lining them up till they're, oh yeah, that's out of line. Lining them up till they're there. Is everything, yeah, everything's where it should be. this is off. There's why it's not going. And you see, as I'm pushing this in, it's just pushing the other rod that's helping me get it together out. We take it out. Now, we see if all the keys are there and where they should be. That's down tight because all the key corks have to be adjusted for height. But basically, everything is there. Yay! Okay. All right. Now, let's just screw it in. And again, since this is a not a heavy-duty thing, I don't have to get out my heavy-duty screwdriver. I can just use my assembly screwdriver. And let's do it with the right hand. I try to do things both with my left hand and with my right hand so we get equal use, but this time let's just get it in there. Okay. Looks like we're basically there. But I didn't like that. If you saw when I screwed the screw in, we got a wiggle here. That means that rod is bent. And I thought I straightened all the rods out, but obviously I didn't. Watch as I turn this. Watch right there. That's going to affect the seating of that pad. If you just turn the screw, look at that. If you just turn the screw, it will adjust the seating of that pad. So consequently, I'm going to have to take this thing out and straighten it. But what's nice is, since all the keys are there, and I have my trusty dusty small rod, it's all going to be quite easy to take them all off and put them back on again, because they're all lined up. So I just take this and push it through, and the rod comes off, and none of the keys come off. Then when I go to put it back together again, all these will be there. But this rod, especially here, is bent, and I can see it with my crummy eyes. So, okay, let's try again, because when I straightened it, any oil that was on it I sure knocked off, so I'm just going to give it a little extra touch oil here as it goes in, but shouldn't matter because the keys are oiled really well. We're just going to go back and see how easy it is to put everything back together again when you have another rod holding it for you. So that's something that I learned long ago. Nobody told me. I just kind of taught myself that, hey, why don't I have it that end to hold it together for me? And going and pushing it through. This goes in, the rod goes out. Flip it around this way. Now let's see what happens when we screw this in, now that it's straight. Yeah, you see that? There's not a movement there at all. Look at that. Nothing. Okay. Everything should be working there. All right. There it is. Now, let's, the keys that have hooks on them, I'll use my spring hook screwdriver, and now all the springs are hooked too. Now, I think boy, I got a lot of the heavy bumpers on it. So, all right, let's get it so we can get enough to adjust first the B key. I'm going to push it down on the bumper a little bit just to give me a little bit of space. There. That's enough to adjust it. That's all I want to do, is get enough to adjust it. And there's what I want. We'll take the old leak light. Go on in there and see how it's doing. Well, it's hitting way in the back, which kind of surprises me because I thought these pads needed to be thick to make it, but maybe there's not so much. Oh yeah, it's in there so crooked, no wonder. And we can all see that. Let me see what you can see from up there. Yeah, you can all see that, that's space there. So first I'm going to go through, and again, since there's no felts on these pads, I don't have to worry about burning the felt on the other keys. We'll just warm the shellac up a little bit on the back, and that should give me enough that I can adjust this pad and rock it so that it fits absolutely perfect, which it does right there. Oh, that's beautiful. Now, the Conn School of Repair teaches you that after you get it and while it's warm, you put 1 drop of water on the pad itself. And it's still warm there. Yeah. And then block it down lightly. And I wonder if I have any small ones. There's a nice small one. I'm going to block it down lightly. Right there. How about here? That looks like a good place to get it. All right. Now, what's nice about doing it that way is you're kind of steam, just like steam pressing pans. You've got the moisture in it. You've got the heat of the pad, the heat of the shellac going through, and then a little pressure putting down on it. And it'll make a seat in it that's really nice. Now I have a least little bit of shellac leaking out of the sides here, but it's so little, when I get done here, I'll just be able to flake that off and you'll never be able to see it. So let's try number 2 here. Number 2 and number 3. Number 2. What is this? They're both pretty thick. Well, those are so thick, and this was so bent up, I'm going to bend the whole thing up a little bit just to get it closer. I think this will do it. What I'm doing is I'm going on to the C key and putting a little pressure and bending it up a little bit so that I got a little more space, which is right there, which is fine. Okay, now I'll block it back down and get it out of my way so I don't have to be fighting it. And now we're back to, we are back to the B key. Yeah, look at how awful that is. All right. This is the key bending as much as it is adjusting the pad with the shellac. So first of all, if you can see that's so far off, we're going to have, it's the key cup. It's not the pad itself, it's the key cup. So I'm going to straighten the key cup so it aligns more with the tone hole. And that's pretty close, but I can do it just a little bit more, and I think we'll be there. Yeah, almost. Look at that. I look at it from the back and it's touching. The front is just not quite. And I like the way it's sitting in there. So I'm going to heat it and just rock it just a little bit. And somebody before me had, when they heated it, got this burnt. I tried to clean it up as best I can. Maybe I'll do a little bit better. But when you have a nice small heat source, you can go right around and not burn anything. That should be enough to give me a little wiggle room to move this pad. That's better. Not perfect, but better. And again, I'm gonna put it in there and just a little bit more here on the back. I think that's closing perfect. Ah, it's off center. No, it isn't. Yeah, it is. Just a little bit off center. And I know when I do that, I'm gonna change the way it hits. Yeah, just the least bit off center. So I'm going to put it here, do a twist, and move it over a little bit. Well, that's pretty darn good. Just a little bit more it has to go over. There, okay. And I had it so close to flat, I got a feeling that just straightening out the key cup will get it. Now, I'm pushing down real lightly to see on the, where's it hitting? Okay, that's hitting from the back. Okay, great, we're good. Same thing, I'm going to take 1 drop of water on my slick, go around it, take off whatever's extra. Put some, block it down with some pressure. From behind. No, from the back it's not doing it. Oh, we're missing the back. Huh. Well, we have to do a little more adjustment here. Yeah, I think when I centered it back up, we got it a little off kilter. And we're getting it from the back, from the front, right there. There, that's it. Cool. And I already have a drop of water on it, so now we can just put a wedge in from behind to hold it down. Okay, hours later, days later, we got all the keys back on it. We have the key guards all straightened. As you'll see, they're nice in alignment there. Got all the pads and all the keys aligned. You'll see the side keys aligned, a little bit there. That's acceptable. G, B, B flat, and the G sharp keys are aligned. The high keys now, you'll see the key height. Now when they're pressed open, the key height is where it should be. And we're all ready for a little play test. It's been completely adjusted. And let's hear what this thing sounds like.
Okay, let's just check the intonation of alternate fingerings. Let's start with this B flat bass, B flat 101, B flat side key. B to C. D to E flat to D sharp. F sharp, side chromatic F sharp. The G sharp trill.